This coming week will mark 10 years since the Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre, where 20 first graders and 6 educators were murdered. In December 2012, the shooting sparked immediate and passionate pleas for gun reforms, which have mostly gone unanswered. This week, President Biden became the first president to speak at the National Vigil for all victims of gun violence, which honored the more than 1 million Americans who have died from gun violence since Sandy Hook. His remarks come just 1 month after a gunman opened fire inside an LGBTQ nightclub in Colorado Springs. Biden used the opportunity to once again push for an assault weapons ban.
The attempt to ban assault weapons, a whole range of things that are just common sense, just simple common sense. But you know, we did it before, and we did it, and guess what? It worked. The number of violent and mass murders reduced were significant. A lot of people's lives were saved. You know, and we can do it again.
Former President Obama, who, of course, cried when talking about the children murdered in Newtown, Connecticut, attended a Sandy Hook Promise event at the beginning of this week.
So I will admit it, I still get angry every time I read about the latest senseless shooting, whether it is in a church or a synagogue, in a grocery store or on a college campus or in a home or on a city street. I still feel anger, and I hope you do too.
Now, earlier I spoke with Nicole Hockley. She is the co-founder and CEO of Sandy Hook Promise. She started the foundation after she chose to transform her grief over the loss of her son Dylan, who was killed in the Sandy Hook shooting, into action. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us. Former President Obama has said that he was deeply impacted by the Sandy Hook shooting. We all remember the images of when it happened and hearing him speak and how emotional he was about it. And it's obvious when you hear him talk about it, even till today, it has impacted him. How did it feel to have him speak at your event this week?
It was wonderful having President Obama at the Sandy Hook Promise event. This is a day he speaks of often, not just as the president, but as a father. And he was there again as a president and as a father, meeting with my family and the Barden and Sherlock families backstage and spending time with each of us. And the words that he said are ring so true. He's still very saddened and angry about what happened and the lack of Senate action afterwards. So it meant a great deal for him to be there and share his reflections 10 years later.
As you said, it's been 10 years. And when we just look back at this year, you had mayors from 70 cities that experienced mass shootings. This year alone have sent letters to Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell urging them to act on gun control legislation. They write in part, quote, "How much more death and destruction must our residents and our communities endure before the Senate acts?" The time to pass the Assault Weapons Ban and the Background Check Expansion Act is now. I think most Americans would agree with that. Do you think any more federal action will actually happen, or is it up to the states now to lead this fight?
I think that there will be federal action, but I don't think it'll be as quickly as people would like it to be. I do think things are going to happen more on a state level in terms of student safety, gun safety, mental health and wellness. And I do think that we need to also remember that there's a lot that we can do in our communities. We can't sit around and wait until policymakers agree with us on issues and until they're elected or reelected. This is important that we prioritize the lives that are at stake right now and every day across the country and press our current politicians for action, but also take community-based actions to help look after ourselves.
I'm curious if you are watching what is happening with the Supreme Court with any cause of concern, because the evolution of the Supreme Court, I'd like for you to talk about that for a moment. It has obviously evolved into this super conservative majority on the bench, and any potential gun control legislation is likely to be challenged in the courts. How concerned are you about it? What are your thoughts about the way the Supreme Court has signaled the issue of gun control in this country?
Well, I think the Supreme Court has made some surprising decisions of late on multiple issues, and some that are completely out of line with what the general population thinks. So I think if an issue of gun control or gun violence prevention does pass in Congress and then makes its way to the Supreme Court, it would be very difficult for them to go against the will of the people and their elected officials. So I think it's one we have to continue to watch and remind the Supreme Court that they are there to hold up the Constitution, but also in a way that is not biased towards their own political leanings.
I wanted to ask you about Alex Jones for a moment. He's become so intertwined with the Sandy Hook story. He has had a massive court loss, several massive court losses, actually, totaling more than $1 billion regarding the misinformation he spread about Sandy Hook. Do you think that was a turning point for you and other Sandy Hook families to see someone like him held accountable for the false lies that he spread about what happened on that day?
There was a certain sense of justice for me in that courtroom that day. But really, I think this is a turning point for conspiracy theorists and also the war on misinformation that's happening in our country right now. And I think this sent an important message that if you willingly and maliciously spread false information for your own personal agenda, in his case, profit, money, that hurts others, that you will be held accountable. So I hope that this is a turning point for that spread of misinformation and that people realize there are consequences for these actions. So stop doing it. That's what I hope this was all about.
Of course, we all know that you lost your son tragically in the Newtown shooting, Dylan. Before we go, if you don't mind, I'd love to hear some memories of Dylan and how he has inspired you to keep fighting nearly a decade later.
Dylan was the center of love in our family. He was a very loving little boy. He was absolutely gorgeous and had this gigantic smile and this laugh and sing-songy voice. And people would tickle him just to hear him laugh because he was so sweet. He was autistic, so he had issues with speech delay. And, he liked playing with the other kids, but he didn't understand the rules. But that didn't stop him from playing with them. And they always included him. And when I think about some of the work that the Sandy Hook Promise has done in terms of creating more inclusive school communities where people look out for each other, where people realize if someone who needs help, that they step up and do something about it, there's a lot of Dylan's spirit in there. And for us, he called himself a butterfly once because he jumped up and down and flapped so much. And I talked at his funeral about the butterfly theory, that one butterfly flapping its wings can cause change on the other side of the world. And Dylan and all the other butterflies across the world that need protecting and that have been lost to gun violence or other, that they're the ones that are flapping to create this change that we're going to see.
Nicole Hockley, I know it's always hard to talk about this around the holidays, but thank you so much. And I can assure you, your beautiful butterfly is changing the world through your actions and the actions of so many other families. So thank you so much for everything you do. And thank you for coming on the show and to talk to us about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.